So really fascinating story about how two podcasters in their attempt to launch this new show have run straight up against some Biden-era policy with regard to his efforts to end non-compete clauses. Put this up on the screen. Great report from Jeff Stein over the Washington Post. The headline here is, their podcast is in trouble. A Biden-led crackdown may save them. So the backstory here of these two gentlemen, Dan McDowell and Jake Kemp, is they had a radio show that was really super popular in Texas. They worked for Cumulus Media, and they couldn't come to terms on a new contract. So they left, and they decided to launch their own podcast called The Dumb Zone. Well, lo and behold, Cumulus Media sent them a letter that said, no, no, no. You have a 6-month non-compete. You cannot start this other podcast. Basically, you can't work at all for that 6-month period because of this non-compete. Well, as I mentioned before, the Biden administration is trying to end the abuse of these non-compete agreements. Back in May, one of President Biden's appointees from the NLRB published legal guidance finding that overly broad non-compete agreements violate federal labor law. And so they are going to court to challenge this non-compete from Cumulus Media. And it could end up being the case that, really ends a lot of overly broad non-competes that have taken hold in massive ways on our economy. They had the estimate here of just how much of our economy is governed now by non-competes. And it's a huge percentage of the workforce for things that are insane. Like we've talked, Saagar, before about like sandwich makers that are being supposedly governed by non-competes. I mean, industries where this makes no sense at all, because the original idea is if you are privy to trade secrets, then potentially it makes sense. But it's just gotten wildly out of control.
I have it here in front of me. Roughly 30 million workers collectively lose $300 billion a year in wages because of non-compete agreements, according to the Federal Trade Commission. And currently, 18% of the entire labor market is currently governed by a non-compete agreement. It's total and complete BS. Now, look, we are not saying here you should be able to walk out. Let's say you're a lawyer. You can't walk out with the client list, for example, and just say, like in terms of proprietary information. But what should stop you, though, from leaving and then going to the client and be like, hey, I think that I could provide you a better service. What's wrong with that? If it's up to the client and it's up to you, if you think you can provide a better service, then Godspeed. And this one, maybe this one is just a little too personal, Krystal, because we quite literally had to suffer through this.
Situation.
But I think people should understand, it's not just white collar workers or people like us, feel bad for the podcasters. There are millions of people who are governed by this and are held and basically forced to work against their will. You and I, not to go too into the scenes, we're quite literally forced to work against our will as part of some negotiations and work a place that we did not want to be at in order to make sure that we were not subject to these ridiculous non-compete agreement. And one of the reasons why, this is such a ridiculous one is, Krystal, they're basically claiming that they were not allowed to work for 6 straight months after not even signing a new contract. It's not like they left. They didn't come to a new agreement, and now they're being sued in court and putting this to a test. So, by the way, shout out to my friend Akash Singh. He actually put me in touch with these gentlemen. He's a friend of theirs. He's one of the ones who encouraged them in order to go public. So all of us do kind of band and stick together. But, the point is that these gents have the absolute right, in my opinion, to be able to leave and to continue the show, of which the intellectual property had nothing to do with the Cumulus Media. It had to do with their content, as you and I have discovered over here at Breaking Points, rebuilding a channel from 0 to 1 million in just the span of 2 years. It's because it was about me and it was about you, and it wasn't really about whatever we were doing or whatever the Hill was giving us at that time. And that's why it's really about the empowerment to the overall individual citizen, that corporations do not own you even after you are under contract with them. The entire idea, actually is very dirty and gross history, spanning back to indentured servitude. And when we had no labor rights in the 1790s, the idea that, you owe me your labor and then I can even control where you go work afterwards because of the trade secrets and all of that. We need to get away from this. This is very patrician nonsense.
Yeah, and this is a genuinely good direction that the Biden NLRB and actually the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has also under Biden moved in the same direction, but it's going to apparently for some reason take longer for them to issue their guidance. But apparently there was a sort of dispute under the Obama administration between Obama and Biden and, various factions within the administration about this same issue. And Obama came down on the side of, I don't know if we can really limit these things. Biden has been really clear. He gave a speech several years back before he was in the White House about how he saw this as, a violation of federal law. And now the people that he's put in place in the administration have attempted to make good on it. Matt Bruenig, who's the founder of the People's Policy Project and also a labor attorney, he's the one who actually filed the Host's petition to the National Labor Relations Board to try to uphold this guidance about the non-compete clause. And he says, listen, if the NLRB finds in their favor, because the courts are supposed to defer to the NLRB's judgment on issues such as this, he says there'd be nothing to stop everyone else in the country with the non-compete clause from doing the same thing. Because at that point, all you have to do is quit your job, point to the NLRB case, and you are golden. He also said that this particular suit against the hosts of the Dumb Zone from Cumulus Media perfectly reflects the kind of corporate overreach that NLRB's guidance is intended to stop. Quote, their contract clauses make it so these guys have no outside option. They cannot really leave the employer without facing huge legal backlash. You're bound to the employer and you effectively cannot leave without their permission. And that is so incredibly important to focus on, because think of how much monopoly consolidation that we've had, especially in the media space, but in so many sectors. So if you have no other option, you can't go to a competitor. There are barely any competitors. You can't hang up your own shingle as these guys did with their own, individual podcasts, which, by the way, appears to have been pretty successful for them. They're doing well. It sounds like a funny podcast. I've never listened to it. But
I don't really know.
They sound charming and
They're
funny.
sports guys,
irreverent,
so there's
sports,
no reason for me to
culture,
listen,
whatever. Yeah. But
look, if Akash vouches for them, then
I might check it out, actually. But anyway, the point is, you leave these people with no options. Like, you keep them locked up it is sort of a form of modern indentured servitude. You keep them completely locked up. So if they're able to succeed and the NLRB backs their case, that is a game changer for millions and millions of workers who are dealing with very similar issues, whether they're at a sandwich shop or podcast hosts or wherever they may be in the workforce.
And also, guys, if you support independent media or the ability to consume the best content at your own choice, this is an important case for you, because there are lots of people who work in these media organizations who are tied down to the stake at these corporations because they own. I mean, even look at the Tucker case. Look at the way that they're able to. There's a reason his show's only on Twitter. That's the only place that he can post without being in technical violation of his contract.
They're saying is in violation.
Yeah, and even that, they're still trying to sue him, and there's all sorts of behind-the-scenes stuff. Like, if you are not working somewhere else, they should not be able to control what you are doing. And even if they get you to sign it because, bonuses or whatever, these things should not be enforceable. And if we can keep this at the national level, it will free up a lot of people. And it's one of the last tools establishment media really has over the people, because they control the means of distribution. But if we can kill it, then, future people like us don't have to deal with that. It was a real headache. It cost us a lot of money.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.